You may wonder how a floating blimp could possibly replicate the quick movements of a fly, but look again. The eyes on the blimp say it all.
What's meant to happen is that each eye, which are pointing directly out to the side, has a very wide field of view, kind of like an insect. So it's meant to be able to see somewhat ahead of it and somewhat behind it, but mostly to the side.
The blimp is trying to fly like a fly. It's a revolutionary way of building vision in robots by replicating what nature has achieved throughout evolution.
For at least several hundred million years, things like insects have been very successful on the planet, going around in real situations, actually living in the real world, and doing what we would like autonomous robots today to do. So one possible approach to building good robots, building better robots, is to study the way biology has accomplished that, which is largely in our brain, and build systems like that.
Charles Higgins is an electrical engineer who also has an expertise in neurobiology. The two fields may seem worlds apart. Not here.
What's going on with that lens problem?
Well, I'm trying to get the lens to see.
What they're trying to replicate is the unique way in which insects like flies and bees perceive the world. And that's based on how the world moves around them.
We've created a motion sensor, a visual motion sensor, that's based on the way insects see visual motion in their brain. So we have a small silicon array of motion sensors, and each motion sensor is sensitive to motion in the same way that actually our brains or insect brains are.
Insects use something called optic flow to place themselves in the context of their surroundings.
If you're driving along in a car or flying along in the sky, the point that you're directly fixating on, the point you're heading towards, everything expands out from that. So that's referred to as optic flow, the fact that points in the image will travel according to your own self-motion. And you can see that too if you take a video camera and turn it around. When you're turning the camera, the whole image moves in one direction or another, so all the points are flowing, moving around.
So what we have here are the eyes on this side and on that side, connected to the central processing board.
So what they did was build a chip that replicated how the eye of a fly sees the world go by. The chip is fitted with more than 500 motion sensors.
So what we're looking at is a 4 by 4 millimeter piece of silicon that has 40 motion sensors this way and 13 this way. And all you can see of each individual motion sensor is the hole where we let the light come in. It's the photoreceptor. It's akin to the actual photoreceptor cells behind each facet of the eye of the compound eye of an insect. And then we have circuits that communicate between two neighboring photoreceptors and are able to see when something was first at one photoreceptor and later at another one. And we count that as motion in a particular direction.
That chain reaction of motion tells an insect its location with respect to the outside world. That allows it to navigate through it and avoid obstacles. Well, what if a robot could perceive the world that way? In this experiment, researcher Shafiq Amin uses a stick to simulate movement in the outside world.
This is the eyes' outputs. The left eye is the blue and the right eye is the red. As you can see, when the blimp rotates, it should detect motion on both eyes. And what my experiment does, the yaw control experiment, is attempts to respond to that motion by counteracting it and instructing the motors to turn the opposite direction of the motion.
But it's not just sensitive to motion. Insects, after all, have remarkable instincts for recognizing landmarks.
There's a lot of evidence that honeybees are able to learn sequences of visual patterns on the wall through a maze. They're able to associate one pattern with another. They're able to use symbolic clues, like if there's yellow on this side, that means turn left. If there's blue, turn right.
It's what allows them to find their way home. So in the lab, they've set up a homing experiment for the blimp, too.
As you can see, it's turning and reading the texture around it and analyzing it. So what we got on the screen over here is the texture signature of this spot. Let's move it this direction. Let's get a reading of that area. As you can see here on the computer screen, texture reading looks different. And computationally, we can find a correlation between the two.
The researchers are working on making the robots more and more sensitive to movement around them.
If I use my hand, you can actually see my fingers. Should be like 4 different signals.
Professor Higgins says the technology will be useful to everything from toy manufacturers to NASA.
It would be nice to have a rover to Mars or any other place that had a multitude of sensory systems like you and I do and like an insect does. And not just vision, but maybe it has hairs all over its body. It can sense wind flow. Maybe it can tell when there's dust on its skin. Maybe it can sense vibrations if there's about to be an earthquake or a fissure is about to open up.
But that will be several years in the future, even though it's based on evolution from millions of years in the past.